right, here we are at the scroll saw. As you approach the saw, make sure you put your safety glasses on, and they're on before you get to the machine. Now, first thing you do when you get here is you're going to check to make sure that the table is free of sawdust from the person before you. You can use either a brush to brush that off or blow off the table. Just make sure it's clear and safe for you to put your work down. Now I'm going to start going over the machine and making sure all these components are ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to check is the blade broken? The person before you may have left the broken blade behind. So I'm just going to take my fingers and wiggle the blade. It does move, but it doesn't come right out, so I know it's not broken, so I'm good to go. I'm then going to adjust the blade guard. That's this part right here. I want to move it down so it's almost touching the wood, but not quite. I want it as close as I can get. So I'll just drop it down. There, that leaves just a very small gap. That'll help. It'll help stop the piece from bouncing up and down. So now that's adjusted. The other thing I'm going to have to adjust now is the tension on the blade. If I come to the blade, it moves quite a bit as I push on it sideways. And that's because there's no tension at the moment. The tension level is just here. I'll tighten up the tension. And if I check the blade now, it almost doesn't move at all. That's ready to go. Everything is set right now. I'm going to look at my wood and make sure there's no foreign objects on the actual wood itself. So what I'm looking for here is either stones or if a nail got stuck in the back or something. It isn't. It is clear, so I'm ready to cut that particular piece of wood. I've also got my design drawn on and I know where to cut. As I come up to the machine, I've got to decide where I want to start. I'm going to start just here and I'm going to cut around here. I will be cutting close to the line, but not right on the line. When I'm doing this, I'll plan to make all my shortcuts first. So in this case, I'm going to start in here, which is a nice shortcut. If I was to start here, it would be a long cut to come in, and I'd rather start with a short one. So I'll start by cutting in here. And once I've planned out where I'm going to go, I'll place my wood and I'm ready to turn it on. As I turn the machine on, you're just going to want to check to make sure that, in fact, the tension is correct. If it's knocking around at this point, making a noise, you'll know that either the blade tension is not right or perhaps the blade is broken. If it's quiet like this and it seems okay, you are actually ready to go. At that point, make sure your hands are free. Step in front of the machine. Oh, I forgot to adjust the guard, so I'll just raise up the chip shield. I got to make sure I'm looking through the shield to where my cut is. That way, if anything flies up, it'll actually hit the shield first. I'll advance the wood till it starts to cut, and I'll move it very slowly. As I'm cutting here, I'm trying to get close to the line, but not touching. I'm trying to keep my fingers clear of the blade at all time. I'm trying to stay about 10 centimeters away from the blade. And as I cut, I put very light pressure on the actual wood. I'm always pushing it forward because the front of the blade is what's actually doing the cutting. And as I push it forward, I'm watching to see where I'm going. If I start to get too far from the line, which happens, because I'm cutting slowly, I can react and I can move it back to the line. If I start to get too close to my line, or I think I'm going to cut past it, again, stop because you don't want to go through the line. As I get near the edge here, I'm just going to cut out so I can show you what I've done. You can see here, I was cutting nice and close to the line, then I went too far from the line and I moved it back towards the line again. The reason we leave a little bit of wood here all the time is, although this machine is relatively easy to use, if you were to cut right on the line all the way around, you would eventually make a mistake and you would come off the line, perhaps cutting into your work. And you wouldn't have the shape you actually want in the end. By cutting near the line, we'll go to the sander later, sand down to this line, and that'll be very accurate. Once the machine's turned off, you can reach around to remove your scrap. Don't leave scrap on the table. Make sure that goes into the garbage safely and you're ready to leave the machine. Never walk away from the machine while it's still on. Make sure it's turned off and actually come to a stop before you walk away from the machine. When you're cutting, if you happen to jam a piece in there, if you're cutting around, you can't move, something's jammed, don't push or force the wood through the machine. Simply turn it off and ask the teacher to come over and give you help. If the blade was to break while you're cutting it, and you'll know when that happens because it's quite loud, again, turn the machine off and step back and ask your teacher to come forward and give you some help. And that's how you use the scroll saw.